Look at the ceiling above your head right now. You didn't build it, you didn't invent it, but someone did. Someone who had no tools, no blueprints, and no second chances. And if they got it wrong, they didn't wake up. This is the story of how your home was actually invented. Not by architects, not by engineers with degrees, by people who were just trying to make it to morning. Check your thermostat. Maybe it reads 68, maybe 72. You set it once and forgot it existed. But for 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors had to solve that number from scratch, every winter, every time, with zero margin for error. We're talking -40 on the Eurasian steppe, not the cold you feel walking to your car, the kind of cold where exposed skin starts dying within minutes, where breathing hurts, where the wind doesn't just chill you, it hunts you. A modern human dropped into that world without preparation would be dead before sunrise. But here's what the documentaries always get wrong. Your ancestors weren't barely surviving. They were engineering. At Kostroma in Russia, 800,000 years ago, researchers found circular pits dug 8 feet deep into the earth. Not natural formations. Tool marks in the soil proved they were deliberate. Why dig that deep? Because 6 to 8 feet underground, the temperature stays 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the air above. Your ancestors didn't fight the cold. They went below it. But the real sophistication came 26,000 years ago. Archaeologists found winter shelters with walls built in multiple precise layers. Innermost, animal hide, fur facing inward, trapping warm air. Outside that, dried grass and moss wicking moisture away. Outermost, woven bark and reed mat, wind-resistant but breathable. This wasn't guesswork. This was deliberate thermal engineering. The exact same physics behind the insulation in your walls today. Different materials, identical physics, but nothing prepared archaeologists for what they found in Ukraine. At sites called Mezherik and Kostenki, they found houses, not caves, not windbreaks. Actual engineered buildings built entirely from woolly mammoth bone. Mammoth skulls weighing 200 pounds each used as foundation blocks. Curved tusks arranged into dome framework. Hundreds of smaller bones filling structural gaps. The whole structure covered in layers of stitched mammoth hide. That is not survival instinct. That is architecture. Experimental reconstructions confirm. A properly built mammoth bone house could maintain interior temperatures 40 to 50 degrees warmer than outside, using only modest fire. Modern Arctic shelters with industrial insulation and electric heating often perform no better. Stone Age builders matched the thermal performance of modern Arctic engineering with bones and stone tools. Inside these shelters, the engineering continued. A central hearth provided primary heat. Smaller secondary hearths around the perimeter created warm zones for specific tasks. Food preparation here, tool making, infants and elderly nearest to the warmest spots. The layout wasn't random. It was planned, and when wood ran out on the treeless steppe, they didn't panic. They processed mammoth dung and bone as deliberate fuel, engineered for specific heat output. They weren't burning whatever they could find. They were managing fuel like a resource. Building a mammoth bone house took 2 to 3 weeks of work by 8 to 10 adults, which means construction had to begin in late summer, well before the cold arrived. These weren't reactive builders. They were planners with seasonal calendars running in their head. Underground chambers connected to shelters by short tunnels served as natural refrigerators, keeping meat frozen and accessible through even the worst storm. Clothing worked on the same layered principle. Multiple hides, each selected for a specific thermal property. The same physics as a modern winter jacket. Developed 25,000 years before Gore-Tex existed. We eventually lost all of this knowledge. Not to catastrophe, just gradually made unnecessary as the climate warmed. Then we spent 100 years rediscovering it with modern science. Military Arctic training programs now teach shelter methods derived from these exact 20,000-year-old designs. Disaster relief organizations have adapted these techniques for emergency shelters today. We lost the knowledge, found out our ancestors had already solved it perfectly. Go back to your thermostat. The number on it represents a temperature your ancestors would have considered miraculous, not because they couldn't achieve warmth. They could in conditions far more extreme than anything you will ever face, but because achieving it cost them everything. Every warm night required weeks of preparation, months of planning, and continuous physical labor. You didn't invent warmth. You inherited it from the most ingenious engineers who ever lived, who had nothing but cold, time, and the refusal to die. The next time the